Hello and welcome to Coming Home with Mama T. I'm your host, Tiara, aka Mama T. And on this podcast, we explore the journey of creating the life of your desires through mastering manifestation, maintaining a positive mindset, and living luxuriously. And today we have a very special guest. We have Natasha Ritz with us, and she is a self-proclaimed explorer of the internal world. And we're excited to share about her book, Souling, which is the first book she's ever written. And it was born from personal experiences in conjunction with academic learnings from her behavioral sciences work. Natasha is a business leader, having led and run multiple businesses in the social enterprise space, helping founders and leaders to operationalize their vision. She brings unique storytelling, knowledge from varied experiences in her life to support the reader in their souling journey as they dive into their innermost self. Natasha, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mama T. What a great welcome. I love the vocals to enter us into the space. I'm a singer too, so I just deeply appreciate that.
I love it. Oh, it feels so good. So to start, I want to know, what is souling?
Thank you. So souling is a made-up word. I made up many words in this book. And souling essentially is a verb that is the action of experiencing your soul. So something that was really important to me as I was going through my own sort of healing journeys, and it's always and forever, but it's really the action part of it. It's like, how can you take control of the things that you have control of and take the steps towards the healing that you need to do on your journey that fits within how you can help yourself.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's some deep work. I love it. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to discovering your souling?
Yes. Well, it's so interesting, right? Because when I look back now on how I got here, it's actually been the last sort of 7 years of work. And the book took me about 18 months to write. So I started writing it in November 2022 in Bali. It was a very like eat, pray, love. Bali has a lot of deep feminine energy. So you can go there and really experience expression and creativity. And I think I was just in a space of openness, and I had just come off the back of a tantra course and was feeling really like smooshy and like soft in my feminine kind of energy,
Mm-hmm.
which had been really unusual for me because I have worked in leadership roles. I've worked in quite large businesses at times and run quite big teams or big projects, and so you're constantly in that state of strategy, leadership, masculine energy to move things forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding myself in that feminine energetic space was a bit confronting, because it was like, am I allowed to do this? Like, is this fun allowed in our lives?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'd come off the back of a lot of other work. So I'd had coaching for many years, I've had therapy for many years, and I'd been trying a lot of different healing modalities in the more holistic space. So everything from meditation to breath work, yoga. As a singer, really working on expressive voice and sound and movement and things like that. And Tantra was one of those experiences that I had as well. I also played in the kink space to kind of learn about my sexuality and understand, I guess, like that polarity of shadow and light within yourself. And often sex can be a really telling tool for you to understand yourself. So I had played in a lot of different spaces, and that's, I guess, how souling came to be. It was like all these experiences that I had. And when I started to write, I wasn't writing for the purpose of a book. I was really writing just to purge my own shit.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it kind of just turned into a body of work that at first it was really about, wow, this feels quite good to just get it out and express. And then it was like, well, maybe other people could resonate with this. And I've faced some really challenging things too, and so I just thought, if I could hand this over to other people and maybe it could help them. I'm really honest and really brash, and there's some really tough things in there. And, I spoke to an editor last week and she said to me, "You're asking a lot of the reader," which is true. Yeah. So that's kind of how it came to be.
I love that. And I love that it started as like a an exercise for yourself, and then it became something for someone else. And I'm working with a coach right now, and one of the things that she likes to say is like, for me, for you, for us. So it really kind of resonates with that whole space of like, okay, so I'm doing this for me and understanding me, and then all of a sudden becomes something that I can also do for you. And then now we're doing it for us. And then in that world, it ripples out to the whole world and making it, the world a better place. Cause I'm all about, oh, let's find that self-discovery and let's do the work for ourselves. And then naturally it's just going to shift to giving, permission to others to do the work for themselves. And then it just continues on and on and on and makes for just a better place to live.
Oh, totally. And I think, because I've been working in sort of social enterprise for the last decade or so, I think what I realized is that there's an interesting amount of judgment that kind of goes on in the space. And when people do take time for themselves or work on themselves or want to discuss their mental health and well-being, it becomes a little bit like, well, you're selfish and you're taking away from the point of the movement, whichever movement that might be. And I had this like deep knowing that, well, actually, I think all the work, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your movement is, actually starts with the self anyway. Because if you have weird underlying biases or value systems that are, out of alignment with the movement that you're working on anyway, you're not making any impact.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to identify, have some really brutal self-awareness and self-honesty to understand how your views impact yourself and your work and how you can change your behavior, and then how you bring people on for that journey in a connected and kind and compassionate way to understand that everyone has their own story. And then, like you said, you can bring a community, or you can, build a better movement or a better like whirlwind around a particular idea if you have done that work on yourself. But without it, you're sort of, I don't know, like flailing in the wind a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. I want to go back to what your editor said about you're asking a lot of the reader. So, because I feel like, when it came up, I was just like, huh, I mean, isn't that life though? Like we have to ask a lot of ourselves in order to like move ourselves forward. So how do you think about the asking a lot of your reader with your book?
Yeah, it's true, right? I'm definitely asking a lot of people because I discuss really difficult topics. I discuss death. I discuss sex. I discuss STDs, sexuality, really difficult things. I discuss breakups, relationships. And in every chapter, I tell a story and then I question the reader, and I use theory and critical thinking to ask them to question themselves. And the idea is really that someone wants to throw the fucking book because they're like, this is so awful and I hate this, but I also am needing to self-reflect so deeply that it's like I'm mirroring myself in what I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of every chapter, I have a journal prompt, a mantra, I have an action people can take, a series of maybe questions depending on which chapter it is, a list of resources, and a playlist, a Spotify playlist that kind of invokes the emotion of the chapter. And so it's a lot. And I think people either smash through the book in like a few days, or they're going to take a really long time to get through it, depending on where you're at in your journey. So, yeah.
All right. I love that. There was like a moment where it kind of dropped out there for a second. So I don't know if we caught everything, but I know I have all faith that everything is working out in perfect timing and we're going to hear all the goodness as necessary. But with that, one of the things I heard the word difficult, like these situations that come up, right? And so what has me thinking is, does it have to be difficult? Like we talk about, like, yes, I emotionally death, losing a loved one is definitely difficult, but does sex have to be difficult? Certain aspects of our life that I feel like as a society, we make them taboo, and that's where the difficulty lies, rather than actually making it a understanding that it's just a part of life, because we all experience all of these things.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It's like the challenge of the taboos or the challenge of facing our emotional state, right? Because I guess my belief is that, we as humans, we have this like array of emotions. And, Brene Brown says we have 87 emotions, which
Mm.
is a lot, right? And I think that we're taught that we're only really allowed to feel the more positive ones. We even frame them positive emotions, negative emotions. And to be honest, that's not really true, right? Because they're all just human emotions. They are all there for us to be experienced. They're like a rainbow, and we should be able to access them without guilt
Mhm.
underlying the access of pain, or, and also we can't know the positive quote unquote emotions if we don't know the polarity of the more difficult ones. If we don't know grief, how do we know the wholeness of love to
Mhm.
its extent, right? And I think so. An example, that I could share with you, that I write about quite a lot, is that about 6 years ago, I contracted herpes. And having something like that is really shameful, right? It's
Mhm.
shaming, it's damning, and you have to, really grapple with yourself about who you are, and open up to every sexual partner that you're ever going to have around your STD status. And so you're in like a loop or a cycle of shame that's related to having this very taboo thing that also makes you feel a bit disgusting, or, not lovable and things like that, which is not true. Once you've worked through all those things and you've been able to really reflect on, okay, you know, why have why do I have this? Is there a reason that I could have wanted this? you
Mhm.
know is there a reason that I attracted this into my life? And what are the opportunities that it actually opens up for me? And for me, it's really opened up communication,
Mhm.
and being really honest and upfront really early with somebody. It's opened the door for other people to be honest too, because I've had people only after the fact be like, oh, me too. I'm like, well, were you going to tell me that, or
Mhm.
you're just going to
Just
have sex with me and not say anything? So it definitely opens the door for people, and that's really positive. But it is, you go through grieving with something like that, right? Because there's a life, there's a part of you that you lose, and then you have to learn to sort of work through that and face yourself and understand who you are. And those things are difficult, but part of that difficulty is the social structures and the messages that we receive, from the patriarchy, from the systems that we live within, and particularly as women, right? The
yeah.
systems that tell us that, we can't have these wild sexual desires, or we shouldn't feel deeply into our intuition, and we should, hand off our power or logicize our way through something rather than feel through something. And
Mhm.
um yeah, so there's just a lot to unpack there. And I think sometimes we're faced with challenging things, and it's really like how you are able to confront the meaning of that for you and make meaning of it for yourself in a way that supports your needs.
Mhm.
Um, and there's healthy ways to do that. And there's, more challenging ways, I suppose, that people do that. So, yeah, I guess it's just about like the tools that you pick up in order to help yourself through those things, whether you talk to psychologists, friends, family, whoever it is that you need, or go through different healing processes, because we also hold a lot of trauma in our bodies. So, working through those kind of experiences are really powerful things to do.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, because it's like, I'm hearing attracting, right? So we're attracting these things into our lives. And so often we can attract something that we view as negative and thus make it mean that we are somehow bad people, and create that meaning. And that's not healthy for us. And that's not supportive of our journey. And so I love the questioning of, okay, well, why did this come through? And what can I learn from this situation so that I can move forward in a better and like happier light? So I love the questioning and the exploration, and allowing it not to necessarily be this detriment to your life.
Totally. And there's this incredible book. It's called Existential Kink. It's written by Dr. Carolyn Elliott,
Mhm.
and she talks about the shadow a lot.
Mhm.
And she really discusses this idea that having is evidence of wanting, and asks the reader to question, if I have this in my life, why do I want this? And so she uses examples of, like, let's say, you're a person who experiences a lot of rejection from, say, friends or family, or you may experience things like humiliation or shame or guilt, and you constantly appear to be having this pattern of behavior around, this emotion that you're experiencing. And it comes up for you in multiple ways through multiple stories or messengers or whatever. And then you're required as the reader to really ask yourself, okay, if I keep having this pattern, do I really want this then?
Mhm.
And she asks you that, if when you go exploring and digging in the space, when you know that you want something like that, is it possible that you're actually kind of turned on by it?
Hmm.
And it's a really difficult conversation, right? It's really hard to think, okay, does having shame turn me on? Is that why I constantly want to feel shame? Is that why I then have herpes? Because then I get to feel shame. And so you really dig into all
Mhm.
these really dark parts of your shadow, and bringing the really unconscious patterns of behavior into your conscious mind so that you can, question yourself, critically think. And when you allow yourself to feel that taboo feeling of being turned on by something that should be considered, a bit yucky potentially, then you actually dissipate all the energy around it, because it becomes less of a thing. You're like, oh, huh. And you can almost laugh at yourself about the humanness of you,
Mhm.
and be like, oh, wow, okay, that's part of me. And then you have something new to kind of observe or hang in suspension, and then walk around to understand more of yourself. And kind of, in a way, what's better than understanding more of yourself?
Oh, that's so good. And it's really like our responsibility to know who we are, right? And that just brought up for me like the idea of, you know, I look at certain things like, okay, if I want a next level, do I want to carry this rejection, for example, with me? Do I want to carry and make this a part of my story? In the sense that, like, okay, well, you rejected me, so now I can weaponize it, right? And I've noticed that in my life recently. I'm like, oh, well, I carry this because I get to hold on to being a victim from this past experience, and then I can keep bringing it forward. And do I really want to keep bringing it forward, or do I want to take responsibility to let it go and shift my energy, shift where I'm thinking, so that I can be the next version of myself that I desire to be, if it doesn't align with that feeling, right? And so that's really, I love that. That's a really interesting part of the conversation. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Yeah, no worries. And that's such a fascinating, we're all filled with all these narratives, right, in our minds about who we are, and what these things mean about us, and we make things mean so much about us. And we're just got bombarded with data and information all the time. So it's no wonder that we, often like suck these energies into us, and build these narratives that are just like, they're what society maybe wants us to do, to distract ourselves from the truth of who we are and to enter
Mhm.
into the depth of our intuition. That's why we were burned at the stake, right? Because
Yeah.
witches are crazy, and like, witches are crazy, and like, it makes sense, because there's a lot of fear around the power of knowing and intuition, and women hold so much power, right? And I now that I've learned so much more about this and about myself, it's like, wow, it really becomes a choice about how much we're buying into the bullshit that we're swimming in, or choosing a new narrative for ourselves.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. I think we're all authors in our own lives. Like we get to be the author, right? We create these stories, and it's so funny like talking to different people, and they'll say, well, certain things that I would consider an opinion as a fact. And then I get to say, you know what, that doesn't have to be my story. I'm not writing that in. I'm going to edit that out. And so we have this beautiful opportunity to do these things as we move through our life.
Yes, exactly. We are the author of our own life, and we can create a blank canvas at any point that we want to, which is really nice.
Yeah. One of the things when we connected that like jumped out to me was like a little talking about your book, and one thing was soul is not a noun, it's also a verb, and that just like really like resonated with me. So I love that you've taken a word that we already like is already in our dictionary, if you will, and given it a new meaning. And when I read that, I had this vision of like in like a flowy dress, like dancing around, like this is souling for me. Like I just felt like, I don't know, like the hills are alive, the sound of music, just like vibration. So I was like, yeah. So I love that that's the title of your book. So that's so amazing.
Oh, I love that you had that vision, because that is totally souling. Like it is about getting into that flowy dress and feeling hot and sexy and moving and being feminine and entering yourself. And it is a doing. It's like a coming into the self. And like, I don't know, I just think that, we focus so much on all these wrong things. Like we focus on work and our bodies, and productivity, and getting into the right relationship, because the only way to live life is to pair up like a penguin. It's just not always so linear, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody's lives, we're all over the place all the time, and everyone experiences things so differently. And it's I guess what I wanted to create was just like a little gateway or a portal or an opening for anyone to be able to access themselves however they require for their lives, because everyone is just so unique, and that's what makes this world beautiful.
Yeah, we don't have to be so rigid. We get the opportunity to play, and in the play, that's exploration, and there doesn't have to be a negative or positive attributed to as we're learning about ourselves. And something else that also popped up was the have you ever worn a jumpsuit to a party and wound up naked on the toilet, fuddled as a fart, belly rolls flopping, boobs sagging, wee exploding, all orifices on show for the world and God to bear witness? No? Well, you have not lived. And that visual, girl, got me. I was like, I mean, I've worn rompers plenty of times, so I know that experience, especially if you're out drinking. I was like, yeah, you know what? Well, at least I feel like I've lived.
You have lived. I can see that you've lived. It's like, it's so funny, because it's every time I'm at a party in a onesie, and I like, of course you're braless, because anytime you can be braless, you're braless, right?
Right.
And you go to the bathroom, and I just end up like, sometimes there's a mirror there, and I'm like, fuck, I'm like a little naked like mole rat here, like sitting like, it's just so ridiculous. And it's just one of those things of like, it's really important that in our lives we can laugh at ourselves and just be like, you know what? I'm a tiny, stupid little speck on this gigantic, rolling, massive ball that floats up in space. And there's so many other galaxies. And like, I'm so lucky to be here at this time with this family. And like, it's wild when you actually think about like how crazy that we're conscious. Like, what? We're conscious beings. We live in like weird little home boxes, and it's all very strange, and if you can kind of laugh about it, it makes life just a little easier.
Oh yeah. the laughter is medicine in and of itself. So it makes life so much better. And so thank you for the laugh. Thank you for your energy, your time. What's the best way for people to access your book?
So you can access it at souling.au. So it's souling.au or on Amazon.
We love it. We love that. So we're going to switch up a little bit. I got my tarot deck here, the Light Seers Tarot today. Almost every day, let's be real.
I've also got mine. This is mine. I've got the classic.
Ooh, we love a Queen Smith. Let's get it. I love it. So do you have a specific question you would like to ask, or would you just like a general message?
I would like a general message.
All right, let's get it. I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Sorry. Two things I have to mention. So I did another episode earlier today, and the Three of Wands showed up in that one as well. And here it's just like, you got to go on the journey, friend. So I feel like whenever I see a card multiple times, it's like a message not just for the person who I'm reading for, but it's a message for anyone who has the opportunity to listen, no matter where they are in the timeline of hearing this. It's just like, go on the journey, have the fun or whatever. And then as I was pulling the cards, I was like, I hope this card shows up. And it's literally the sun, right? And the sun, this is when I said souling, this is the picture that I had. I was like, of the sun tarot, of the Light Seers tarot, that is the image I had of what souling is. So when you go on their journey, that is your souling, and that helps you to really manifest the life of your desires. So like, go on the journey, have some fun, start to play, get into like your soul vibration, and watch everything just come to fruition for you. And understanding that, the destination isn't the point, I think, because the destination is death, in my opinion. So like, if we are moving forward and we are exploring, we are living, right? And so that's what the journey is all about. It's about living. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mama T. I love that. So good.
Oh, that was amazing. So Natasha, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience today?
You know what? I always have one question that I really would love people to ask themselves, and that is, what do you need right now?
Ooh, what do you need right now? I had like 13 things just came to mind, I feel like.
Amazing. Because we need to ask ourselves questions about our own needs, because usually we're all fluffing around everybody else and trying to fulfill their needs. But what about you?
Yeah, what do you need? It's a good question. It's good exploration. So with that, let's explore our needs, our desires. All the information that you're going to need is going to be in the show notes. So access to the links and all that good stuff. Thank you so much, Natasha, for your time, space, magic, and energy. And for all those listening, remember to like, share, subscribe. You can always go to www.mamatenergy.com to check out the Activate Your Inner Shift meditation series, the home membership community, and any other fun things we have going on. And with that, ta-ta for now.